Tonight, the impassioned and powerful plea from the Ukrainian president as his country resists relentless assaults from Russia. Zelenskyy appearing virtually before Congress, begging for a no-fly zone and for more military aid, showing a powerful video of the horrifying scenes from inside a war-torn Ukraine. Lawmakers stunned. Biden pledging $800 million of aid, but wary of escalating the fight with Russia. Zelenskyy telling our Lester Holt that World War III may have already started. The shocking images from Ukraine adding urgency to Zelenskyy's speech. Russian forces bombing a theater where hundreds were sheltered, holding hundreds more hostage at a nearby hospital, using their bodies as human shields. Fires raging in Kharkiv, more than 500 civilians killed in that city alone. The death toll mounting. Here at home, record high prices fueling heists across the country. Gas stations and drivers targeted from California to Texas to Pennsylvania. What experts say you can do to keep the thieves at bay. Passengers at risk. Bricks of cocaine stashed behind electrical wiring on multiple commercial flights. The pilots completely unaware that the drugs were there. How this smuggling operation could put you in danger. Deadly DUI arrest. Disturbing video showing a man's struggle with police moments before he died in their custody. Tonight, his family demanding justice, saying police ignored his repeated cries of "I can't breathe." And the devastating landslide in Peru turning deadly. A woman and baby pulled from the wreckage. Residents still digging to get inside dozens of buried homes. An update on the rescue efforts on the ground tonight. Top story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Vicki Wynn in for Tom Llamas. We begin tonight with that powerful speech from the president of Ukraine, appealing directly to Congress and to President Biden for help fighting Russia. Zelenskyy, who has won the world over with his brave leadership in the face of Russian aggression, met with a standing ovation. The president drawing on American tragedies, saying innocent people in Ukraine are dealing with senseless airborne attacks like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor every day. Zelenskyy then playing this video. A stunned silence falling over the room, images of a once peaceful and beautiful Ukraine juxtaposed with searing scenes of war and its devastating humanitarian toll. President Biden's response coming hours later with the promise of an additional $800 million in aid, but Biden standing firm against a no-fly zone. The need for more aid is undeniable. Harrowing scenes coming out of Ukraine, apartment buildings again bombed overnight. Russian shelling triggering massive fires, and a theater sheltering hundreds of civilians targeted in a Russian-occupied city. The death toll climbing every day. NBC's Lester Holt spoke exclusively with Zelenskyy after his rousing speech. What he had to say about the possibility of World War III in a moment. But we begin tonight in Washington with Kristen Welker and that remarkable moment on the Hill.
With Russian forces still raining down bombs around him, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy today appearing by video link with an emotional appeal to Congress and President Biden.
I see no sense in life if it cannot stop the death.
Zelenskyy comparing the Russian invasion to some of the most painful moments in America's history, Pearl Harbor, 9/11.
Innocent people were attacked from air. Our country experience the same every day.
Even invoking Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, Zelenskyy saying Ukraine has a need for a no-fly zone, which President Biden has already rejected, saying it could cause World War III.
I need to protect our sky. I need your decision, your help, which means exactly the same you feel when you hear the words, I have a dream.
Zelenskyy playing a graphic video of the devastating impact of the Russian assault on his homeland, calling on President Biden to send more weapons and to unleash tougher sanctions.
I call on you to do more.
Ending his speech with a personal and direct message in English to President Biden.
You are the leader of the nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace.
Lawmakers, some in tears, giving him a standing ovation. Later, President Biden, for the first time, declaring Russian President Putin a war criminal.
I think he is a war criminal.
And announcing $800 million in new military aid to Ukraine, including 800 Stinger anti-aircraft systems and 100 armed drones, new technology called Switchblades.
This could be a long and difficult battle, but the American people will be steadfast in our support of the people of Ukraine.
But no mention of the MiG-29 fighter jets Poland offered to transfer to Ukraine at a U.S. airbase. There's growing bipartisan support for that step, which President Biden has ruled out.
Getting these MiGs in immediately is so critical. The longer President Biden waits trying to figure out excuses to not offend Putin, it's costing lives in Ukraine.
Today, we press the president.
Mr. President, what will it take for you to send the Polish MiGs that President Zelenskyy is asking for?
I'm not going to comment on that right now.
And Kristen joins us now from the White House. Hey, Kristen, President Biden, he went there. He called Vladimir Putin a war criminal. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. What more is the White House saying tonight about the president's remarks?
Well, it's a good question, Vicky. The White House says the president was responding to what he's seen on TV, noting there is still an ongoing international investigation. But look, here's the bottom line, Vicky. Punishing Putin will be difficult, if not impossible. Here's why. The International Criminal Court and the UN Security Council can take action against war criminals, but it's actually up to individual countries to enforce convictions. So there's really very little likelihood that Putin would be punished under those terms. Now, according to the White House, President Biden had wanted to avoid labeling Putin a war criminal to preserve the chance of potentially at some point being able to negotiate an end to the horrific war. Vicky.
Kristen Welker, thank you. With Ukraine's president pleading with Americans for more help, his nation's capital under brutal attack tonight. Kyiv under curfew as shelling intensifies. In Mariupol, officials say Russian troops have taken hundreds of civilians hostage in a hospital. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel reports once again tonight for us from the ground in Ukraine.
With round-the-clock, earth-shaking bombings, Russia is turning Ukrainian cities in its crosshairs into a living hell. At a hospital in Mariupol, doctors struggle to handle the flood of injuries and dead. Many of the images are too graphic to broadcast, but what we can air shows naked Russian brutality against a captive population. Ukrainian officials say Russian forces bombed a theater used as a shelter in Mariupol and took over another hospital, locking in hundreds of civilians, doctors, and patients as human shields. Elsewhere, Russia bombed a market in Kharkiv.
Slava Ukraine.
Glory to Ukraine.
While President Zelenskyy had Congress on its feet, President Vladimir Putin gave his own speech, angry and rambling. He accused the West of trying to cancel Russia and called the Ukrainian government Nazis pursuing nuclear and biological weapons, including COVID. He vowed to cleanse Western-minded Russians, calling them traitors, not the talk of a man who seems interested in peace.
Vicky, amid all of this violence, particularly the indiscriminate violence that we're seeing in Mariupol, Russian and Ukrainian negotiators are somehow sounding optimistic. But after what Putin said today, it's hard to see a ceasefire coming anytime soon. Vicky?
Hanging on to hope. Richard Engel in Ukraine for us. Please stay safe. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt sat down with President Zelenskyy for an exclusive interview. Zelenskyy answering questions about the need for American aid, Ukrainian tenacity, and the path to peace.
I'd like to begin by asking you the status of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. There's been some reporting that the framework of a deal is being hammered out, one in which you would renounce NATO ambitions, declare neutrality, not allow foreign militaries to base on your land. Can you confirm any of that and update us on the status of negotiations?
Well, thank you for this question, Lester. First of all, the negotiations are still in progress. The negotiations are fairly difficult. And the current conditions of negotiation, I would say, it continues any war could be finished at the table of negotiations.
You delivered a very passionate speech to Congress. You once again renewed your call for a no-fly zone. As you know, that's a non-starter in this country. But you also made the pitch for an alternative, and that's the fighter planes. Do you think that President Biden is inching closer to perhaps reconsidering transferring fighter planes to Ukraine?
Well, this is the choice for the President Biden to take, and the whole civilized world would need to take. And hopefully, that choice would coincide with the choice of the Ukrainian people, because currently Russia has an advantage in the air. Our partners can support us from the standpoint of supporting and supplying of those aircraft.
President Biden has been very clear he's worried about provocations that could trigger World War III. Do you understand his concern there, and do you agree that it wouldn't take much to end up in World War III?
Well, nobody knows whether it may have already started, and what is the possibility of this war if Ukraine will fall, in case Ukraine will fall. It's very hard to say, and we've seen this 80 years ago when the Second World War has started, and there were similar tragedies in the history. Nobody would be able to predict when the full-scale war would start and how it will end and who will put an end to that. In any case, the wars tend to end up in millions of people lost. People die, and millions of buildings destroyed. Now we have different technologies, nuclear weapons. In this case, we have the whole civilization at stake.
The U.S. administration has raised concerns that Russia might launch a chemical attack. Do you think there is a red line, and whether that would be a red line that the U.S. would move forward and become more actively involved in combat?
I believe that Russians have already crossed all the red lines when they started shelling civilians. They've killed over 100 of children. And I don't understand the meaning of red lines. What else should we wait for? For letting Russians kill 200, 300, or 400 children?
And then I asked him about the fate of Ukraine's capital, the city where he still is tonight, with the Russian onslaught intensifying.
If Kyiv falls to the Russians, does the entire country of Ukraine fall to the Russians?
Well, our people are unconquerable. And this is what our people have clearly demonstrated. You can conquer the city, you can break the heart, but you won't be able to force anyone to love someone. That is why the heart will always remain with the Ukrainians.
Our thanks to Lester Holt for that interview. We want to bring in Vice President for Russia and Europe at the United States Institute of Peace, Bill Taylor. He's also the former ambassador to Ukraine, a friend of the show. Ambassador Taylor, thanks for being here. President Zelenskyy, once again, with an emotional, no-holds-barred speech today in front of Congress. What's your reaction to what he said and also to President Biden's response?
So, Vicki, this was President Zelenskyy at his best. He's just a great speaker. He's a great leader. He showed us, and it was great that all Americans could watch and see and appreciate the strength and the courage of this man. As you've pointed out, as Lester pointed out, he's in Kyiv. He's not quite surrounded, but nearly surrounded by Russian forces trying to get him. They're after him. He's there. He's not leaving. And when he addressed the Congress, and he brought the whole Congress together. He brought left and right, Republicans and Democrats. He brought the whole nation together in support of him. He's pulled his own nation together. I was in his office, Vicki, about a month ago, before this all started. And at that time, there were opposition leaders who were opposed to some of the things that President Zelenskyy was doing. No longer. 92% by the latest poll, 92% of Ukrainians now totally support him. The military supports him. The nation supports him. And now we've seen how he can get the United States Congress, the American people, the people of the world to support him in his fight. As he points out, Ukrainians are fighting the Russians on our behalf. It's on our behalf. So I was very impressed. You asked about President Biden's response. Mm-hmm. President Zelenskyy asked for more weapons, and President Biden came forward with another 800 million. So so what? We're now at $1 billion this week. $1 billion this week with the kinds of weapons that President Zelenskyy was asking for. You talked about the fighter jets, which President Biden didn't respond to, or the no-fly zone, which he did not respond to. But President Zelenskyy did say that if you can't do the no-fly zone, then give us the surface-to-air missiles. And it sounds like what President Biden said is he's trying to get those surface-to-air missiles for President Zelenskyy.
And on that front, Ambassador, from an operational perspective, how will the weapons provided by the U.S. make a difference in defending Ukraine? And logistically, how quickly can they get to the Ukrainian forces?
So, Vicki, they're flowing in right now. It's like a hose. And we're increasing the volume of that hose. And we need to increase it even further. And this $1 billion this week, that expands the hose. That's a lot of water coming through this hose. And that needs to continue. And so it is coming through. They're finding ways to get it to the military. Ukrainian military is fighting very hard. There are reports today that the Ukrainian military is counterattacking against the Russians. The Russians are way outnumbering the Ukrainians. And everybody thought that they would be able to go to Kyiv in 2 days. Well, Vicki, it's been 3 weeks. It's been 21 days. And the Ukrainians are holding them off. So those weapons that we've been providing through that stream of weapons coming in over the last 8 years, but really accelerating over the past month or two and accelerating this week, they're coming through and they're having an effect. And the Ukrainians are using them to great effect.
Ambassador Taylor, as always, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it. Now, as Russia's attacks intensify, more than 3 million refugees have fled Ukraine, fighting their own personal battles as they look for safety. Tonight, they are calling on the international community to do a lot more. Gabe Gutierrez now with their emotional stories.
Tonight, the weight of the war is etched in these faces. Luba Peshekadova escaped with her grandchildren from eastern Ukraine. It's very difficult. Please help us, she begs. This is a makeshift shelter above the Lviv train station where medical teams are helping refugees battle deep trauma. Victor Vus is a psychologist who's volunteering here, but he's also a refugee himself who fled his home in Kyiv.
All of us are in the permanent strength.
This room holds children up to 5 years old. They and their parents might spend anywhere from several hours to several days here. Standing here, what really strikes you is that because of the echo in this room, when one child cries, you really hear it. From babies to teenagers, war is cruel. At a nearby hospital, 15-year-old Lara is battling leukemia while her country fights for its survival. It's horrible, she says. Instead of fighting this disease, we had to leave loved ones behind. Sometimes physical scars are not what hurts most. It's hard to see her suffer, Lara's grandmother says. Like so many here, they're asking the world to do more. Weeks into the war, the struggle to board trains like this one to Poland repeats itself night after night. As Russia intensifies its air attacks, more refugees are making the heart-wrenching decision to leave the world they knew behind. Vicki?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. We turn now to the economy. As expected, the Federal Reserve today announced it is raising interest rates for the first time since 2018. The 1/4 point increase is expected to help tame runaway inflation. NBC's Tom Costello has been watching the markets all day. He joins us now. Hey, Tom, this move is expected to be just the first in a series of rate hikes. Unpack the timeline for us. And what is this expected to do in terms of slowing inflation?
Yeah, well, you're right. So it was a 1/4 point rate hike today, but the Fed chairman says there could be 6 more rate hikes this year as the Fed works to bring down 40-year high inflation, with Americans paying for more for everything from food to clothing to cars to gasoline. This is a tightrope, though, that they're walking, Vicki. They hope that the higher rates will cool consumer demand, bring inflation under control, while also maintaining the country's very strong labor market, unemployment under 4%. But higher rates mean consumers will pay more for credit cards, adjustable rate loans, new mortgages as well. And they're concerned that if they tap the brakes on too hard, they could put the economy into a recession. So experts right now advise pay off credit cards right now, lock in new mortgage rates right now if you can. And also, if you have an adjustable rate loan, could be a student loan, could be some other kind of a loan you have, a home equity line, you might now want to try to convert that into a fixed rate loan so that your rates won't keep going up. But the goal here, Vicki, is to bring inflation down. It's now at 8%. They want to bring it down to 2% within 2 years or so. That will be tough. Most people think we'll go to double-digit inflation before rates start coming back down again.
All great advice for what consumers can do and take action with now. Tom, while I have you, let me ask you about this. Help us understand. Oil prices are coming down, but the war in Ukraine obviously continues to rage on. Russian oil now virtually off the market here in America. So are we going to see any changes in gas prices, and what's causing oil prices to go down?
Well, so the answer to why is oil going down, and this is kind of strange. China, as you may have seen, is locking down cities because they've got an explosion of COVID there. Part of the reason they've got COVID exploding is because they use their own vaccine. They did not use the vaccines approved in the West. Apparently not very effective. They've got COVID exploding, so they've locked down cities again. If you lock down cities, your demand for oil and gas drops. And, of course, as you know, oil is a global market. So that's why oil is dropping worldwide. Now, when will it translate into lower prices at your local gas station? That should happen in the next weeks or so, but as you know, gas stations sometimes don't always pass along the savings as quickly as we would like.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. Well, sky-high gas prices Tom was talking about, they're not the only problem at the gas station. Thieves stealing thousands of dollars in fuel from pumps across the country. How you can protect yourself when you go to fill up. Zelenskyy has more.
Tonight, gas thieves striking U.S. stations and drivers from Texas, California to Pennsylvania. In Long Beach, police say there's been a string of heists as the price of fuel continues to rise, leaving area stores on high alert.
No license plate number.
One gas station cashier shared video with NBC of white trucks he says were outfitted to steal gasoline. The trucks seemingly just topping up, but now accused by station staff of guzzling up thousands of dollars worth of fuel.
You see they have the tank in the bottom.
On Thursday, the cashier says accused drivers, seen here, quickly scattered once police arrived. Police say they arrested one suspect at the scene, but other stations haven't been so lucky. In Spring, Texas, one Chevron station says they lost $10,000 worth of fuel and only noticed when balancing their books.
It's not gonna come through the computer unless we take the reading from inside, and nobody knows.
Cameras captured as many as 8 trucks alleged by the store owner to have stolen gasoline, the local police captain responding.
Especially given the cost of fuel and oil right now throughout the country, this is especially an egregious crime with individuals taking advantage of businesses like this.
Experts say inflation and Russia's invasion of Ukraine has caused gasoline prices to soar, up nearly 80 cents from a month ago. But it's not just stations. Individuals have been targeted too. One Pennsylvania woman who did not want her name or face shown for privacy found a hole drilled into her gas tank. Home video showing a person circling her vehicle.
My husband, when he came home, he looked at the camera. He's like, the guy has a drill in his hand. So yeah, and when he looked at the hole, it's a drill.
Gas theft is not only illegal, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it can be very dangerous for the people that are doing it, especially if it is a metal gas tank. If you get any sparks flying or anything like that around gas, you're going to have a fire.
But there are preventative steps one can take.
Obviously, ciphering gas is something that has been done for a long time. But the one way to prevent that is they do have, for more traditional gas caps, they make ones that you can put on their aftermarket that have a key and lock in it.
Temporary solutions to what experts hope will be a temporary problem.
Wow, locking the gas cap. Zelenskyy, this is wild. Zelenskyy is here now with us from 30 Rock here in New York. Couple questions for you. One, what more do we know about that suspect who was arrested after the heist in California? And also, you mentioned a couple tips, but what else can we do to avoid falling victim to this?
Yeah, Vicky, it is nuts what's going on. So in regard to the suspect, he was identified by police as a 27-year-old resident of Las Vegas, Nevada, and booked for 1 count of attempted grand theft property, conspiracy to commit a crime, and possession of burglary tools. I spoke to police today, and they say there are at least 2 other suspects, and it is an active investigation. That said, if you are not a station owner, if you're like many Americans, just a driver, mechanics and law enforcement say keep your gas caps locked or buy a locking cap, and if possible, leave your car locked indoors, for example, in a garage, and avoid keeping it in public spaces for too long, because that might entice thieves. Vicky?
Great advice. Cinque Asamoah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we turn to a tragic story out of Texas, a head-on collision involving a passenger van carrying members of a college golf team. 9 people killed, 7 from the team's van, 2 in a pickup truck. The cause of that crash still under investigation. Officials from the university calling it devastating. Here's Morgan Chesky with more.
Tonight, it's the mangled wreckage breaking hearts from a collision killing 9, including 7 members of a college golf team.
It's a very tragic scene. It's very, very tragic.
The accident happened around 8 p.m. Tuesday. Authorities say a team van for the University of the Southwest was headed home from a Texas tournament when a pickup truck veered into their lane seconds before impact.
I've got wrecked vehicles on both sides of the highway, fully involved vehicles. I'm still trying to get up on scene and see what we have.
Authorities say that head-on collision grew worse when flames engulfed both vehicles. Burn scars now line the side of the road where bystanders tried desperately to save those trapped inside.
Crews airlifted 2 students more than 100 miles to hospitals in Lubbock, where they remain in critical condition. But for 6 student athletes, their coach, and 2 others inside the truck, the impact proved fatal. Among those lost, Lacey Stone, whose high school coach called her a hardworking student and golfer with a constant smile.
She joked and she sang and she just lived life to the fullest, and it's going to be really hard to not have her around anymore.
The university president confirming the team coach, Tyler James, was also among those killed.
Morgan Chesky joins us now from Hobbs, New Mexico. Morgan, this is an incredibly heartbreaking story. This crash happened just last night. Are you learning anything more about the condition of those 2 students who survived?
Yeah, Vicky, we are. We were told that they were airlifted more than 100 miles north to hospitals in Lubbock, Texas, and at last check, they remain in critical condition. In the meantime, federal investigators said today that they have dispatched a team of 11 to 12 NTSB investigators that will scour the scene where this accident took place in hopes of learning more about its potential cause. But they say right now it is too early to tell. Vicky?
Morgan, thank you so much. Just in tonight, Jussie Smollett will be released from jail pending an appeal. A judge ordering his release on bond after Smollett's lawyers argued he would have finished his sentence by the time the appeal process was complete. Last week, the disgraced actor was sentenced to 150 days in jail for staging a racist and homophobic attack against himself and lying to police. Still ahead tonight, deadly DUI arrest. Body camera footage showing the man saying he can't breathe multiple times. A lawsuit just filed by his family. Plus, the massive fire ripping through a Walmart distribution center in Indiana. The concern tonight for residents in that area. And kilos of cocaine found hidden on passenger planes leaving from New York. Where they were stashed and could they pose a risk to those on board? Stay with us. We're back now with a look at the drug smugglers putting passenger jets at risk. Federal authorities have uncovered cocaine shipments hidden in secure electronics bays. These are areas that help pilots maintain control of the plane. WNBC's chief investigative reporter Jonathan Deans takes us to JFK Airport, where agents are trying to stop these dangerous smuggling schemes.
It has happened on several flights into the New York area, including recently on American Airlines and JetBlue. Pilots operating these passenger jets were unaware of what was sitting beneath them amid their controls and wires.
You can see back there.
After inspections like this, kilos of cocaine were found jammed into the electronics bays of several passenger flights.
That's where the wiring for the aircraft is.
Frank Russo heads Customs and Border Protection for New York's airports.
What we've seen here at JFK in the last year alone is over 30 kilos of cocaine and heroin being smuggled in the avionics section of the aircraft.
He says some planes get grounded because smugglers damage critical wires while rushing to conceal bricks of cocaine.
We know that these are individuals who don't care about the safety of passengers that are flying.
Officials say the international flights in question can originate out of Latin America and the Caribbean. At JFK, Customs uses this specially trained officer, an airplane mechanic himself, to carry out drug searches in critical parts of the plane.
You got a lot of space. You actually hide a whole duffel bag up inside here.
Homeland Security investigation says at airports overseas, the drug cartels pay insiders to get drugs onto planes. And after landing here in the U.S., others are paid to retrieve the hidden drugs. Investigators say when it comes to the sensitive avionics compartment, only a few, like mechanics, have access.
You obviously do not want to have anything that can interrupt the flow or the operation of an airplane.
HSI says to investigate these security breaches, a special unit is in place to try to track airport insiders, foreign or domestic, who might be corrupt.
We have plenty of ongoing investigations that I cannot speak about, but in the past we've done a few arrests and seizures and interdictions to make sure that the planes and our traveling public are as safe as they possibly can be.
Experts say an avionics bay secretly packed with illegal drugs could damage important controls.
You could lose communication radios or autopilot computers, flight control computers.
But the chances of a fire or a pilot losing total control midair, unlikely.
It could cause certainly a diversion, because if you start losing multiple systems, you don't really necessarily know the immediate cause, so you need to get the airplane on the ground.
JetBlue declined to comment on the recent cases. An American Airlines spokesman said its corporate security team works in close partnership with law enforcement to prevent any such activity from occurring at our airline.
We're going to start looking in some of the hiding spots that they usually use.
Officials say smuggling in an avionics bay is rare.
Behind the mirror?
Certainly compared to other sections of a plane, whether it's a cargo hold, in suitcases or shipments, or on board, hidden in life jackets under seats.
This is a good place to conceal a brick.
Or behind panels in other parts of the cabin. But smugglers compromising a plane's electronics hub, an ongoing priority.
We need to dismantle the networks that are behind these cases so that this stops. It's really not safe for the traveling public.
Jonathan Dienst, News 4 New York.
Now to the man who died in police custody while officers were trying to draw his blood after an alleged DUI stop. New video shows the struggle, the man repeatedly shouting, "I can't breathe," while pinned on his stomach. Tonight, the lawsuit from his family and their calls for justice. And we want to warn you, the footage you're about to see is disturbing.
Tonight, disturbing video showing the final moments of life for a man who died in police custody.
Please help! I can't breathe!
The victim's family blaming police for 38-year-old Edward Bronstein's death, now suing the officers involved, claiming they ignored his cries for help and didn't render aid quickly.
I hope they pay for what they did, and I want justice.
Bronstein was stopped by California Highway Patrol in March of 2020 for allegedly driving under the influence. Video released this week by court order appears to show officers attempting to get a blood sample.
You can just provide it and still say you don't consent. That's fine.
Nearly a minute into the exchange,
this is your last opportunity. Otherwise, you're going face down on the mat.
Officers appeared to continue coaxing Bronstein. Then this.
Do it willingly, I told you. Please don't. Okay. I'll do it willingly. I'll do it willingly. I'll do it willingly. I promise.
Several officers appeared to restrain Bronstein in order to take the sample. Bronstein can be heard screaming throughout the ordeal, at one point declaring,
"I can't breathe! I can't breathe! I can't breathe!"
Just stop yelling!
Within seconds, no more screams. Now, the lawsuit and the attorney for Bronstein's family seizing on how officers responded to those cries.
He says, "I can't breathe." 12 times is what I counted. 12 times he says, "I can't breathe." Not one officer took the action to pull the others off of him, pull him to his side, do something to give him air.
After about a minute and a half of silence, someone appears to check Bronstein's pulse as the blood draw continues. 30 seconds later, that person begins tapping Bronstein's cheek, something seen multiple times throughout the more than 17-minute video.
Edward.
Wake him up.
The blood drawing appears to continue until about 4 minutes later when police roll Bronstein over.
Lift his head up. Get his airway open.
An autopsy found Bronstein died of a meth overdose while restrained by police.
Edward. Where is CPR? Where is first aid?
His screams, his face, them slapping him around, it will live in my head forever.
Bronstein's family is now suing the California Highway Patrol and the officers involved, alleging negligence, wrongful death, assault, and battery, among other claims.
I want them put away so they will never hurt nobody again.
It's unclear whether the officers involved are being investigated in connection to Bronstein's death. California Highway Patrol declined to comment on the case, citing pending litigation. The family is also calling on the Los Angeles County District Attorney to file criminal charges against the officers. The DA's office tells NBC News the matter remains under review.
I wish my dad was here every day, and there's nothing that will take that away.
Priscilla Thompson joins us now live in studio. So many questions for that family, Priscilla. Now, the California Highway Patrol, as you reported, they're not really commenting, not saying a whole bunch about this case. But what do we know about the department's policy? Do they have one about ways and techniques that officers are supposed to investigate and restrain someone who may be under the influence?
Yeah, well, Vicki, we reached out to California Highway Patrol with those specific questions, and they did not respond. And while they haven't said much about the specifics of this incident, I did speak with a former police chief and member of President Obama's policing task force, and he emphasized to me that that is why many departments across the country do these blood draws in medical facilities, because you don't know a person's medical history. You don't know what, if anything, they may be under the influence of. And so it's really important to be in a position to render aid immediately if something like this does happen.
Priscilla, thank you for your reporting. We know you'll stay on it. When we come back, the violent attack at a Seattle train station. A woman pushed down the stairs multiple times at random. The charges the suspect is now facing. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with a horrifying attack in Seattle. Security footage showing a woman thrown down the stairs multiple times as she attempted to walk out of a light rail station. The suspect also kicking her in the face when she tried to fight back. That woman suffered several broken bones, but she is recovering. The suspect was arrested and is now facing assault charges. Next, to the massive fire at a Walmart distribution center in Indiana. New video shows giant smoke clouds and intense flames shooting out of that warehouse. Take a look. Tractor trailers outside also catching fire. Officials say all 1,000 employees are accounted for, and so far, no injuries reported. A shelter in place is in effect for those nearby due to those potentially toxic debris and fumes. Officials are now monitoring the air quality. The cause of that fire is under investigation. Several rallies held across the country to mark 1 year since the deadly Atlanta spa shootings. Nearly 200 people gathering outside the Georgia state capitol today, honoring the victims and raising awareness about the uptick in violence against the Asian American community. In Washington, members of Congress also gathering on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Last year, a gunman killed 8 people. 6 of them were Asian women. That was happening at 3 businesses in the Atlanta area. A survey by AAPI Data found 1 in 6 Asian American adults have experienced hate since the pandemic started. We turn now to COVID as the United States sees a decrease in cases and easing of pandemic restrictions. China and Europe are dealing with serious outbreaks of new COVID strains. This news overseas comes as the CDC confirms an uptick in the presence of COVID-19 in wastewater samples across the U.S. For more on all this, we're going to bring in NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Hey, Dr. Torres, I want to start by asking you about these new outbreaks that we're seeing in China and Europe. Is this the same strain we saw in the U.S. around Thanksgiving? And are these an indication that we might see another COVID spike here in the U.S.?
And good evening, Vicki. And I think what we're seeing here is basically a tale of two different countries. If you look at China, yeah, they're having large outbreaks in China right now. They're shutting down cities, trying to keep it under control. But China's in a little bit of a different situation because they tried that that full containment, zero COVID type policy, which didn't work in any country that tried it. So they don't have that immunity built up. Plus, on top of that, the shot they use, the Sinovac, which is the Chinese vaccine, isn't nearly as effective as the mRNA vaccines we're using here and in Europe. So you can't really look at China and say that's something we're going to duplicate here. But then you turn to Europe, and in Europe you're seeing is countries like Austria that are having these huge surge in cases. They almost duplicate exactly what's going on here. And we've seen wave after wave where within a couple of weeks, we end up having the same type of situation they have there. And so that's the one the experts are looking at saying, you know, we need to be cautious because we're seeing these cases rise in Europe where they essentially have the same vaccines we've used. They have the same level of protection that we have here, both from natural immunity and from vaccinations, possibly even higher. And they're starting to see these cases. Could be a harbinger of what's going to happen here, Vicki.
So they're keeping an eye on that. And back here at home, the CDC is confirming there has been an uptick in the presence of COVID-19 in wastewater samples happening all across the country. Do you think that the relaxed COVID protocols that we're seeing, did those start a little bit too early? And what are we learning from this new information?
You know, I think, Vicki, we're going to find out really soon if they started a little early or not. And hopefully there are mechanisms in place to put them back into place if we start seeing these cases go up again, which is what should be happening. And with wastewater, essentially what happens is you end up having that bacteria, that virus in your intestine go into wastewater much sooner than it would be in a PCR test, for example. And so they can detect it in wastewater a lot quicker. And what they found in sampling over 500 different sites across the U.S. is that a third of them ended up having some positive COVID increases in the wastewater, which is more than they were just a month ago. And so the concern is, you know, we're seeing it more around the country, but doesn't necessarily mean the cases are going to start accelerating. We don't know at this point, but something they're certainly keeping an eye on. And this is essentially like a canary in a coal mine. That wastewater gives experts an idea, gives scientists an idea of what they need to start looking for. And they're starting to look for that right now, Vicki.
Quickly before I let you go, Dr. Torres, what does all this mean for another booster? We have Pfizer asking the FDA to authorize its second booster shot for people 65 and older. And, you know, people are saying maybe this is going to be just like the annual flu shot that we have to get. What do you think?
And it might very well be, but right now what we're looking at is two different sets of information coming out of Israel. One showing that for young adults, that extra booster didn't really seem to matter a whole lot. But for those 60 and above, particularly 65 and above, it did seem to matter. And so that's what they're looking at right now, saying, should we be giving boosters to 65 and above, this extra booster? And that's what the FDA is going to start looking at here very quickly.
Always good to see you. Thanks for making sense of it, Dr. Torres. Now to an exclusive NBC News interview with actress and UN Refugee Agency Special Envoy Angelina Jolie. She was at the White House today to celebrate the signing of the Violence Against Women Act. The bill contains new provisions that Jolie lobbied for alongside Ruth Glenn of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They sat down with our Kate Snow.
At the White House today, President Biden celebrating a milestone with advocates looking on.
It took time to change the culture, and you did it.
Angelina, you lobbied for the Violence Against Women Act to be reauthorized. You were all over Capitol Hill. This day has to feel big for you.
Well, we lobbied.
Yes,
lobbied.
we did.
Yes,
we
did. This is a long time coming.
Ruth Glenn leads the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
What is the significance of this being signed into law?
Many, many survivors who have not had their needs addressed previously will now have their needs addressed.
The act includes Caden's Law. We've reported on the 7-year-old who was brutally murdered by her own father following a custody dispute. Now, federal incentives to set legal standards to minimize the risk of harm to children and provide training for judges hearing custody disputes.
Do you think, absent training, do you think sometimes law enforcement and judges in this country are too quick to dismiss allegations of real abuse?
I think this country doesn't recognize what a serious domestic violence and child abuse problem it really has. When somebody harms a child, if it's a stranger, the way the law responds is quite strong. When it's somebody within a family, within a home, it is responded to less.
The bill also expands protections.
It fills the gaps for our Native American sisters and brothers, LGBTQI, the list goes on and on.
Jolie also pushed for funding for technology to detect bruises on children of color.
Part of this came from being a mom, and my children have different skin tones. And I've noticed over the years, just even with dermatology, that so much of it is based on white skin. It's personal, and I won't say very much. But if somebody comes in and assaults us, you look at me and you look at Ruth, you have a better chance of seeing bruises on me.
Angelina, you said this is personal. In passing a moment ago, I don't know if you realized you said that, but you said it is personal.
And I know for a lot.
It's personal for a lot of people.
Jolie, who's been in her own custody battle, told us this about the family court system.
And I think once you're exposed to this system, whoever you are, once you're exposed to it and you realize how unbelievably broken this system is, you have to do something to improve it.
Today at the White House, she celebrated doing just that. Kate Snow, NBC News, Washington.
And Kate Snow joins us now from Washington, D.C. Kate, that was such a great conversation about this new law, the reforms in the family court. I know you've done a lot of reporting on the broken system, but you also got a chance to talk with Angelina about the situation in Ukraine. We know she's been really active working with refugees through the UN over the years. What is she saying about this refugee crisis now in Europe?
Right. So she's a special envoy with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. She actually was in Yemen just a couple of weeks ago looking at that situation where there are refugees. She said, look, I am paying attention like everyone. She said, as a mother, you know, her heart breaks when she sees those images of refugees flooding out of Ukraine. But she also said she wants everyone to remember the millions more. You know, this is opening our eyes to a refugee crisis, but there are millions and millions more refugees in other parts of the world. She's sort of hoping that because of Ukraine, we'll all be more motivated to pay more attention. Vicki.
Kate Snow, thank you. Still ahead, the deadly landslide in Peru. Rescue teams digging through piles of rubble. The harrowing discovery they made today and the desperate search for survivors. Stay with us. Back now with the Americas, focusing on stories from the U.S. and across Latin America. In Peru, the race to save any survivors after a deadly landslide destroyed dozens of homes. Rescuers now putting themselves in danger in hopes of finding anyone alive. Guad Venegas reports.
Devastating video shows the moment the hillside crumbled Tuesday morning, burying entire homes and trapping people inside. The landslide obliterating this northern Peruvian neighborhood after heavy rain saturated the area, according to authorities.
De una señora y su bebé. Una señora y su bebé, señor. Nada más, ¿ya? Entonces, eso es lo único que hasta el momento se ha podido recuperar.
Neighbors digging tunnels in an attempt to reach survivors before it's too late.
We think that after one day that they are underground, it's very difficult to rescue them alive.
Local government leaders are declaring an emergency and urging residents to vacate the area.
Nuestras casas están como lo ve, estamos viviendo prácticamente un caos porque estamos debajo del derrumbe, tenemos miedo que nos tape también a nosotros, pero no hay a dónde ir.
The region's governor informing 60 to 80 homes have been completely covered. The president arriving by helicopter to help coordinate a response.
Lo que nos interesa en este momento es ir a rescatar a esas personas, a esas familias que el día de hoy han perdido las vidas. Tenemos que ser fríos, tenemos que ser sinceros en ello.
Yet rescue experts say the task is challenging with limited resources on the ground.
The local authorities from the district, they are not well prepared. That's why the national authorities and the regional authorities are in charge of the rescue of the aid of people that is buried right now.
A rescue mission taking place under the threat of another landslide with hopes of finding those alive.
And Guad Venegas joins us now here in studio. Guad, do we have any idea what could have caused this landslide in this area so close to homes?
Well, Vicki, we know that they had heavy rainfall these last few days, and authorities are saying that could have contributed to the landslide. Now, also, this part of Peru is known for having illegal mining that has caused some landslides in the past, yet authorities have not said if this specific landslide could have had something to do with the amount of illegal mining for gold that takes place in this part of Peru.
Guad Venegas, thank you so much. And when we come back, the kindergarten hotline. kids answering the call, their pep talks and words of wisdom you won't want to miss. It's so cute. Stay with us. Finally tonight, if you've been feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, just know you're not alone. There's a group of elementary school students with some positive messages only a phone call away.
If you're feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, press 1.
If you're nervous, go get your wallet and spend it on ice cream and shoes.
Move over cold calls and doom scrolling. There's a new trend in positivity, accessible right from your cell phone. Welcome to the Pep Talk Hotline. Real advice you can use from the students at Westside Elementary in Healdsburg, California.
If you feel mad or frustrated, you can do what you want to do best, or you can do flips on the trampoline.
The hotline is the brainchild of Westside art teacher Jessica Martin and local artist Ashera Weiss, inspired by the positivity their students have shown over the last few years.
It's been a hard few years. We've been listening to the advice that you have and everything you do to help yourself and your friends and your family feel better. And we'd like to share that with the world.
So that's what they did, starting small with posters.
Never back down, never give up. We love you!
But like any good campaign, the kids wanted to meet people where they are, naturally, on their phones.
We're on our screens all day, and to actually pick up a phone and talk to someone or listen to someone is very rare, actually.
If you need words of encouragement and life advice, press 2.
If you're feeling up high and unbalanced, think of groundhogs.
Fifth grader Matisse is proud of his contribution to the hotline.
I did the if you're feeling high and unbalanced, think of groundhogs, because I thought it would be a little funny thing, play on words, and it would make people smile.
He says when it comes to encouragement, kids just do it better.
No offense, but I feel like kids' voices can be better at encouraging than adults' voices. They're just like, I don't know, they're just better.
It's that perspective that has the Pep Talk hotline ringing off the hook.
2 days after we went live, we were getting 500 calls an hour. And last I checked, we were getting 11,000 calls an hour. So it's absolutely extraordinary.
10-year-old Liam says the hotline meets a critical need.
It's so stressful right now because the Russia and Ukraine war, COVID, and loss of family members. It's pretty sad.
I'm always happy, but then my mom, she comes home from work and she's just stressed, and I don't like that. I'm like, Mom, press number 2, listen to the little kids. You will be fine in an hour.
A few words from kids, now reaching adults around the world.
I think for them to understand one little small word, one sentence, look how it's impacting so many lives all across the world.
So take it from Liam, we could all use a pep talk.
Just with one word of encouragement, you might have a great day afterward.
You can do it! Keep trying! Don't give up!
From the mouths of babes, keep up the great work out there in Sonoma County, kids. You're doing a great job. Thanks so much for watching Top Story tonight. For Tom Llamas, I'm Vicki Wynn in New York. Stay right there. More news now on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.